can you kind of dive into the situation with Jasper?
Yeah.
That led to their removal?
Yeah. Yeah, so at the start of our terms, we're on the Student Senate Caucus. The Student Senate Caucus has elections for co-chairs, and Jasper and Kareem both get elected. So early on, I didn't really have a problem. But the moment that I started recognizing, like, hey, there's something wrong with this, the co-chairs do committee placements. So they do committee placements. They say, you're going to be on these committees, this person's going to be on that committees, et cetera, et cetera. And do these committee placements, everyone has 48 hours to voice concerns about it. No one voices any concerns. So those committee placements go forward. Then an email comes back from the Senate Secretariat, which I was only aware of because I was on nominating committee. So I'm sitting on nominating committee, and the Senate Secretariat says, looks like you missed a committee, that there was one committee that had not been allocated. This is Council of Senates. So we needed an extra student on the Council of Senates. So they send an email to the co-chairs, and instead of going back to the committee, and saying, hey, there's this extra committee, either vote on it or I'm going to put myself on or whatever, Jasper just puts himself on the committee. And typically that committee, Council of Senates, does not do a lot. Like, it does not have a lot of functions. The budget subcommittee is more of a body that has kind of roles. But when there is a tie in an election for Board of Governors, the Council of Senates casts the deciding vote, which never happens, except this year it did. So before placements happened, the tie hadn't happened. Tie happens. They get an email. Chris sends the email saying, there's a tie in the election. So Jasper takes the seat so they can vote on this tiebreaker, because at the time it was between two people who one of them was closer to Ashana and Camille, and the other one was closer to Kareem and Jasper. And so they wanted to have that vote to be able to decide that. So they didn't tell caucus that happened, but I was aware that it happened because I was on nominating committee. So that's like that first red flag for me. Then, shortly after, there's all this drama about a special meeting, right? Special meeting of Senate. And what happened was Jasper and Kareem kind of stole the thunder of a movement that was already happening. And
which movement was this?
The movement to have the special meeting.
Okay.
To disaffiliate with certain institutions.
Okay, so this was the divestment special meeting.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly...
disassociation with groups that were associated with Israel?
With Israel, yeah, universities in Israel. So we're going into this... first of all, they come to me, and they're asking for my signature to have this special meeting. And I was like, I just have to, I think if you want to have this, you should give the administration a heads up, because if you want to have a good faith conversation where this is going to go well for you, you should give them a heads up. So I'm not going to sign it unless we're giving them a heads up first. Because also when I put my name on something, I'm not just putting my name down as Faculty of Applied Science Student Senator. I'm putting my name down as the VP Academic and University Affairs of the AMS. So all this starts to happen, and then afterwards I hear from members of the caucus who were Jewish, who were just never consulted. They weren't asked to sign the form. They were not talked to about what was happening. And in those conversations, I talked to them, and they're not, they were sympathetic, right? They are not people who liked what Netanyahu was doing. They were vehemently against Netanyahu and the government, the current government in Israel. So I recognized that not only had they kind of redirected this energy and tried to take credit for it, they also...
This is credit for
like this move. This
was they were essentially aligning themselves with like the not necessarily the Palestinian, but like the looking at the university's role in supporting the Israeli government.
Yeah. And they were trying to make themselves seem as if they had led this, when I knew, in fact, like there were other people who had been working on this since before the start of the most recent term, right? Like there were things that were happening in admissions committee, and the work wasn't getting done by the current co-chairs. And I think that's not even the worst problem. The problem that I recognized was a lack of principle, like that you say one thing to certain people and then say other things to other people. And I thought, this is not something that can, like, our caucus is not going to function this year with the way that this has gone. And when I look back, I really more had a problem with the way that Jasper had handled things than the way with Kareem had handled things. And to some degree, I regret kind of looping him in with those things. I think he was somewhat complicit. Like, he didn't say, no, you shouldn't be doing this when Jasper was doing those things, but he also wasn't actively doing that. So I had a conversation with Jasper and Kareem. I said, look, we're going to have a meeting, and in this meeting, I'm going to bring up whether or not you should be removed to the caucus. I want to have this conversation here beforehand, because if we don't have to have this conversation, we don't have to have this conversation. Like, I'm going to bring it forward, but if you step down, we don't have to have this conversation. And they decided to go forward with it. They decided to go forward with the vote, and we went forward with the vote, and they were removed. So their accusation is that I threatened them, like with UBC coverage, and the UBC was there. The caucus decided not to have the UBC in. So that accusation of either you step down or we cover you doesn't really make any sense, because they didn't step down and they weren't covered. So, it's like, okay.
Did you threaten them with the UBC at all?
I talked to them and said, like, the UBC is here. I said, like, this might get covered. So,
but that can be seen as an implicit threat.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're worried about your actions being covered by the news, like, you're telling on yourself. Like, I would not be worried if the UBC was there. I would be happy if the UBC was there during my investigation process. If they were there the whole time, I would have been so much more comfortable. So if you're worried that the UBC is going to be there to cover your removal, like, why are you worried about that?
I think it's a little bit different, though, when you bring it up. Like,
yeah.
Just on a personal level, I think it's a little bit different, because that can be seen as, like, threatening.
Yeah.
To you get what I'm saying? Because, like, imagine if, like, CK had said, we're going to change the rules and allow the UBC be there for your vote to be removed.
Yeah.
Or you can resign and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right? You would take that as a threat, I assume.
Yeah, probably. I mean, again, though, I would say I've got no skeletons in my closet. Like, it's only a threat if you have something to hide.